Welcome on in, golf fans. It's your boy Gsluke here with our course breakdown for this week's Bermuda Championship. Gonna get you ready for all of your exposure with a complete breakdown of the venue at hand, Port Royal Golf Club. And we'll start with some course details, analytics per bet the number, also a whole breakdown of the kind of shots required around here, also bet the numbers modeling, a few comp courses that you can use for a leaderboard crossover. By the end, you'll be a complete expert on the golf course for this week and ready for all of your research. So without further ado, we've got a ton to go through here. Let's get this thing going. Port Royal Golf Club is the shortest course that we have on the PGA Tour. It only is 6,828 yards, and that's despite it being a par 71 setup. So you may hear that, think immediately about precision players off the tee, guys that are accurate. Because the rough is only 2 inches long, it doesn't really matter how accurate you are. In fact, we've had a lot of bombers finish in the top 5, top 10 over the last couple years, and even winners like Lucas Herbert in the past that have won the damn thing as an extremely inaccurate player. So don't be completely thrown off by that kind of distance. It is still a course where if you're shorter off the tee, you can get into the top 5, top 10, but it's not necessarily a good thing to be a short player here. So a couple of notes, you have 8,000 square foot greens on average. The agronomy is also Bermuda grass from tip to toe. You'd expect that in Bermuda. That is, of course, where the strain of grass originated from. And we do have some zoysia in the fairways, but 419 Bermuda in most cases. And they've got a lot of sand bunkers in play, 87 on the 18 holes. And though there's only 4 water hazards, it's in play on 7 of the 18 holes. So a little bit more of a factor than we had at some of the desert style courses the last couple weeks, but another course where something around minus 20 is likely going to win. It is susceptible to some coastal winds though, and if it's going to be a nasty weather week, it could be closer to maybe minus 15 that's winning, but under soft and also calm conditions, it could be won with something like minus 25. So maybe a wider range of winning scores than most golf courses, and that's because of the addition of some of that coastal wind. The architect is Robert Trent Jones Sr. That was the original designer in 1971, but it's been renovated a couple times since, most recently by Robert Rolbich in 2008, but since the last 5-10 years on tour, it's been pretty much the same exact golf course. So we do have some data to work with, but without ShotLink data at this particular venue, we only are limited in our scope with that. So the green and regulation average is one of the averages that's available. It's about 68.8% at this golf course, which, believe it or not, even though it's only 6,800 yards and 8,000 square foot greens are larger than most on tour, it's only 3% higher than most weeks. So I thought that was at least surprising to me when I first saw that. I expected it to be well over that 70%, and part of that is the wind that can kick up around here, but also tricky greens with a lot of fall-offs around them. So the around the green play a little bit harder than you'd expect at a birdie fest. Speaking of, the scrambling rate is about 3% higher than the tour average as well, which you'd expect it to be easier with something winning it like minus 15, minus 20. It's not like this is a major championship course with 4 or 5 inch rough around the green, but it's not a 65 to 70% scrambling rate like we sometimes see at golf courses. So also sneaky or hard, a little bit of a harder birdie fest than most people would give it credit for. Birdies per round, 4.33 per round. That's about 0.7 higher than what we usually see. Bogey or worse average is about 2.25 per round. That's easier than most courses on tour, but compared to a couple of the resort style venues that we've had over the last month that were closer to 1.7 to 1.8 bogey averages, it's significantly higher there. So it's trickier than some of the recent tracks. Around the green is something that we're going to have to look at, but let's go hole by hole to give you a taste of what these players are playing. So hole number 1, 435 yards. It is a severe dogleg from left to right, and one where you can't really hit driver on it. So this is one where the field is pretty much equalized off the tee. Everyone's going to be hitting from the same spot, but one where the pin location really dictates the difficulty. Anything close to the water, of course, adds a half a shot, maybe even more of difficulty, whereas the right sides will be extremely gettable. Next up, we have 2, which is 561. This is a reachable par 5, one where if you're a bomber, you can cut off the angle off the tee. So that's one where having the extra distance can really come in handy. But even if you're taking a layup to the corner, you should be getting it close or even on the green surface in 2. 3 is 148 yards, one of the shorter iron shots that we have on property, and this one also a bit pin dependent, as anything close to that water hazard can be a bit problematic. Next up, we have 4, which is 460. This is a long par 4, at least for the standards of this golf course, and one where most players are going to have to hit less than driver off the tee, as it gets real tight with an out of bounds to the left, and also they've got some really well placed bunkers protecting that right side. Next up, we have 5, which is 377. This is one of the many pitch and putt par 4s that we have at this golf course. One where most players are going to take less than driver, but if you are an elite tier guy with the distance, you can take this bunker out of play and hit it up within 40 to maybe 50 yards of the green complex. 6 is the exact same thing. Another one where if you're a bomber, you could try and hit it where the first cursor is here. Most players, though, are going to take less than driver back to this landing area, but this is a hole, and there are a few other examples on this golf course of one where power could really give you an advantage over the rest of the field. 7 is a reachable par 5. Power, not as big of a factor here, as a 500-yard par 5 is reachable by every single player that's in the field. Heck, I'd be reaching that one in 2 if I was playing it myself. Next up, we have 8, which is 212 yards. It does play into the prevailing wind in most cases, so already a long hole that sometimes plays even longer than that. Also, an awkwardly shaped green that can be a little bit hard at times too. You've got a little bit of a natural area over the back right that you have to avoid. Next up, we have 9, which is 384, another pitch and putt par 4. If you hit a driver on this hole, you could hit it to within 60 to 70 yards, which is going to be a 40, maybe even a 50% birdie rate, depending on where they have that pin location. Hole 10 is 348, so if you're starting on the backside, it's another positional hole where you can't really take driver. The reason for that are these well-placed bunkers just in front of the green. If you do so and you have a really good 40-yard bunker game, then maybe you go for it, but I don't know anyone on tour that feels really good about their 40 to 50-yard bunker shots. Those are notoriously some of the most difficult that we have in professional golf. Next up, we have 11, which is 442, another quote-unquote longer par 4 for the sake of this golf course, but we know that these tour players are going to absolutely destroy anything in the mid-400s. Next up, we have 12, which is 382, another pitch and putt par 4. If you're a shorter player and you love your wedges, you're laying up to about this marker, but your longer players, like a Herbert, he took a more aggressive strategy on a lot of these holes, where he was banging it up there to 40 to 50 yards, and then his stout around the green play, his stout pitching game is what got him a lot of that birdie production. And 13 is another long par 3, so kind of like you had at 8. This is one of the more difficult holes that you have at this golf course, and hitting a green regulation at 13 is truly an accomplishment because of how small it is too. It doesn't usually play its full length, though. It is worth noting that they move up the tee box there quite often. Next up, we have 14, which is 392, another pitch and putt par 4. Not much to say other than that missing left in this deep wooded area is an absolute no-go. 15 is 405 yards, another shorter par 4. This one is completely wide open off the tee, so you're going to see a lot more drivers here and a lot more people being aggressive because you don't have to shape it one way or the other to hold the short stuff, and you also don't really have that much to worry about in terms of a hazard. Next up, we have 16, another long par 3, and this is the one that you'll see on a lot of the overhead views because it's got that great vista to the left side, one of the better views in all professional golf, kind of similar to what you get at Pebble Beach on a lot of those holes, but it's a long, demanding par 3, and anything that's near the coastline has the most exposure to the wind. So this hole on a windy day can play upwards of 0.5 to even 0.6, 0.7 over par. In fact, there was one round a few years ago where it played a stroke over par. Next up, we have 17, which is 503 yards, another extremely reachable par 5, so kind of like the last par 5. This is one where no matter what, you're at least getting it near the green complex. And 2, if you have to lay up because of this water hazard, you're still going to have at most like 70 to 80 yards in. And then finally 18 is 408 yards, another pitch and putt par 4. And unlike a lot of golf courses where the finishing hole is one of the harder ones on site, this is one of the easier holes that we have on the golf course because it's wide open off the tee. There's not really any hazards that you have to worry about. And it's also straight up. There's no dog leg from left to right. There's no dog leg from right to left. That means that you have to shape it with your driver. And that's something that a lot of players have trouble doing. I mean, they could shape their irons, even their wedges, which some people have some trouble with, but off the tee, you hardly see people moving it other than their stock direction. So that's why these holes like 18 that are more straightforward are going to be birdie fest from that perspective. And when we put that all together, we could take a look at the bet the number modeling and what they're putting together for us. And we'll start with some of the form metrics. So we're going to start with shots gained off the tee. I'm glad that Bet the Number is not looking at driving accuracy, is not just looking at the precision aspect, because as you saw going hole by hole, there are quite a few, 5 to even 7 tee shots, or being a bomber is going to be useful. So a Pearson Cootie who not only hits the ball long, but also straight. You can see at the top end of the shots gained off the tee list. A Cam Champ also playing it particularly well with his driver too, gaining about 0.73 shots gained off the tee per round. Rico Hoey at that same exact number, so 2 absolute studs that you can mix in. And if we can find long long and straight players off the tee that also are good with some of their wedges, those are going to be some of the nutted plays of the week. And for the off the tee play, we're just looking at regular off the tee, but I'm glad that with the approach play that we're narrowing it down to 120 to 170, because if you're hitting your driver on a lot of the pitch and putt par fours, you're not even going to have 100 yards. You're going to have like 50 to 75 yards. But if you're laying up, you're going to be in this 120 to 170 range almost every single time. So players that excel in this particular 50-yard bucket are going to get a massive boost to the bet the number modeling. So a Victor Perez, a David Skins, a Mateo Manacero are checking that box. But the ones that, especially to me from the outright perspective, we went upside, top fives for DFS. I want the bombers that also hit their wedges well, because on the par fives, they can obviously reach them in two, potentially even make eagle on them. Some of the pitch and putt par fours get it up near the green, but when they're laying back, which strategically, especially depending on wind direction, is going to be the choice of a lot of players, I want them to be able to attack with these wedges as well. And they've got that with a Rico Hoey. A Thomas Rosenmuller's also been hitting the ball well off the tee and gaining in this 120 to 170 range. And same thing with a Patrick Fishburne. But in general, hitting the ball well from 120 to 170 is getting rewarded by bet the number. Next up, we have around the green, which isn't so much the case with scrambling that we're looking at it, but a lot of your birdie opportunities, whether it be on the par fives or with some of the reachable par fours, are going to come with your around the green shots. So it's not going to be like the main thing that bet the number is looking at, or that I'm looking at when I build my model a little bit later on, but it's something that will be in like that maybe 10% range in terms of my weighting. We've also got putting, and if you want to look at Bermuda grass putting, I think that makes a whole lot of sense here as well. The green complexes are Bermuda, as you'd expect in Bermuda. But yeah, regular putting heading in, Bermuda grass putting, all things that I think are worthy of looking at. And if you just take a look at some of the better putters in general recently, that'd be guys like a Montgomery, a Willett, a Suber, a Springer, a Takumi Kanaya. You add regular putting form over the last 12 to 24 rounds on top of shots gained putting on Bermuda, and those players are going to be standing out as well. And because this is a shorter track where the ball striking probably means a little bit less, I mean, whether you're laying up or you're hitting driver off the tee, you're going to have a lot of birdie looks, whether it's the wedges from the fairway or, you know, some of the chip shots from around the green. Putting and making those 5 to 10 footers is going to be a huge key separator. So I think that adding an extra 5 to maybe even extra 10% weighting to your putting categories this week is something that you might want to consider doing yourself. You can also look at birdie or better percentage anytime we have a winning score close to -20, and in particular for your DFS modeling, where DFS score is directly correlated to the amount of raw birdies that you're posting. Birdie or better percentage should be something that you're optimizing for most golf tournaments, and that will certainly be the case this week. Kevin Yu, number one over that sample size. I believe they're using the last 24 rounds for most of these categories. Rico Hoey is number 2 in that category. Pearson Coody ranking out number 3. But all these guys that are making 25% of birdies, anything within like 1 to 2% of that are going to get a significant bump up for this week. And then bogey avoidance. This is a harder golf course than some of the other resort style venues that we've seen. And to get to the winning score of -20, you're not only going to have to post 20 to 25 birdies, but you're going to have to be somebody that's making less than like 5 bogeys on the week. So, you know, it's not like a Kuchar, these more positional players are going to stand out that much, but that bogey avoidance, the really good putting, the really good around the green play to take advantage of the par fives, has Kuchar as a top 10 play this week, and there's not a lot of golf courses on tour where that would necessarily be the case. So that's why we need to incorporate some of these bogey avoidance stats so that we're not just getting the long bombers on the par fives, which I do really value, especially in DFS on a week like this, but we also need some of those positional guys to mix in there. So your Andrew Putnams that are good at bogey avoidance, your Patrick Fishburne who's showing up in yet another category. Spoiler alert, he's in the top 5 of the modeling this week, but a Cam Champ has also been really good at that bogey avoidance. When we put it all together, the top 5 are Pearson Coody number 1. Keep in mind though that he's played in a lot of the alternate or weak field events because he's primarily a Korn Ferry Tour guy, but still got to give respect to what he's done on the PGA Tour when he's played, even if it's not as big a sample size as other players. He's really taken advantage when he's gotten that chance to. Victor Perez at number 2, he's been more of a constant on the PGA Tour, so him at number 2, something that we really have to look at. Rico Hoey, Patrick Fishburne at number 4 as promised, and then Cam Champ there at number 5. So we do have a few of the bombers there, but we wouldn't call Victor Perez a bomber. We wouldn't call guys like a David Lipsky a bomber, a Matt Kuchar at number 9, certainly not David Skins at number 10. So there's a good mix of players here towards the top. And shout out to Kevin Yu. Kevin Yu continues to pop every single week in the modeling. I think it's just a matter of time before he goes out there and wins one of these events rather soon. Another player that you might want to keep an eye on this week. And then for our comp courses, I've got a few that really come to mind. First off would be the Sony Open in Hawaii. We've got Bermuda grass from tip to toe, also a shorter, more positional track off the tee, and a lot of holes where you have to hit it to the corner, where you've got trees, wooded areas where you can't even hit driver if you want to. So I think this course this week is actually a little bit more bomber friendly than what we have at YLI, but a lot of the same key stats that we were emphasizing in this modeling on Bet the Number, we're emphasizing at YLI Country Club. So if you want to take a look at some of the leaderboards over the last couple years, I think that can make a whole lot of sense. You had Nick Taylor winning the last time around, Nico Echeverria second, JJ Spawn in third. So these top 5, top 10 finishers may be worth an extra bump up. And look at that. There's Patrick Fishburne from 2025. Let's go to 2024, the year before that. Grayson Murray won. Rest in peace, man. That's just still makes me sad to this day, even thinking about what happened to him. But the rest of these guys in the top 5, top 10, also perhaps worth an extra bump there. There's Nick Taylor. Again, some of these more positional players like a JT Poston, a Russell Henley, for example, but also some bombers, some better off the tee players like a Keegan Bradley, for example, Carl Wan showing up. Juan, of course, is a sprayer off the tee, so certainly not more of a positional player. Then the year before that was when Siwoo Kim ended up winning. A lot of guys like Chris Kirk, Buckley that are shorter off the tee. But if we scroll down here, I'm sure we'll find some bombers as well. Like a McNeely, he's not really an accurate guy off the tee. A Benny Ann, you wouldn't say that about either. But Benny Ann has also had some success at this golf course in the past. So there's a lot of crossover between what we've seen at the Sony Open and then what happens this week. So taking a look at the last maybe even 4 or 5 years is something that I'd recommend doing. And then the other golf course that I have in mind would be the Wyndham Championship. That's another par 70. It's a little bit longer than this week, but still more about your accuracy than your distance off the tee. It emphasizes a lot of the same agronomy stats, putting stats, around the green stats that we're looking at for this golf tournament. So last time out was when Cameron Young won. He's a bomber. So this is another golf course where we still had some bombers show up in the top 5, top 10, but you'll see that outside of that, it is a lot of positional players rounding out the rest of that leaderboard. Shout out to Jackson Quaven. Cannot wait to watch him play on the PGA Tour. He's going to win this year, probably even multiple times. Year before that was when Aaron Rai ended up winning at -18. You had some bombers like Max Grazeman showing up, though. In fact, Grazeman probably should have won that golf tournament. Even guys like a JJ Spawn, a Luke Clanton, who's more of a bomber off the tee, had success in 2024. And then the year before that was when Lucas Glover got the job done. And look at that. There's Benny Ann again. And Benny Ann is a bomber off the tee. He's not a very accurate player, but he's showing up these more positional courses. And that's because of the rest of the skill set that he has. It might not be off the tee that's the perfect course fit for these more positional venues, but maybe it's the iron play that really helps him feel comfortable. Maybe it's the agronomy, Bermuda grass, right? Being the common factor, agronomy-wise, of both of those different tracks they can use for some leaderboard crossover at the Bermuda. Alrighty guys, that's all I've got for the course breakdown. Go ahead, smash that like button if you haven't already. Also subscribe to the channel so you guys don't miss any of the content to come. That'll of course include our betting and DFS preview dropping on a little bit later on tomorrow, as well as all the rest of the events this year. So you won't want to miss any of that when it drops. Make sure you subscribe so you get notified when it goes live, including our live streams for this weekend, including rounds 1 through 4, and the prop and the DFS side of things, going over all the action beforehand. So that'll include weather reports, also ownership, any live questions that you guys have before all these different slates, completely covered for every single event this year. So we're one of, if not the only channel around the entire industry that has you covered for not only your action heading into every golf tournament, but also live throughout the way. So make sure you're subscribed so you guys don't miss any of that when it goes live. But other than that, that's all I've got. Best of luck with everything that you guys are going with. Also, go ahead and comment down below what you've got is the winning score for this week. And if you get the correct winning score first, you'll win a free month access to everything I have on my Patreon page. And over there is where you guys can find all of my course modeling, all of my DFS projections for every single player that's teeing it up. Also, the underdog and prize picks props that I'm entering on the pick'em side of things. All of that can be found on my Patreon. But for a chance to earn that for free, all you have to do is guess the correct winning score down below, and it'll be on that first come, first serve basis. So claim your score before anyone else ends up stealing them from you. Best of luck with everything that you're going with for your exposure, and I'll see you guys for that DFS and the betting preview later on tomorrow.